There's a problem in cinema right now. The Marvel problem. The factory-produced, assembly line-level mediocrity of Marvel has spread its tendrils into several other franchises. Universal is trying to do it with Godzilla, Hasbro is trying to do it with their IPs, even video games are suffering from MCU-itis. But Marvel's main competitor, DC, has been trying for years to recreate the lightning in a bottle that Marvel got with the MCU, at least up until Endgame. Or even further back, the success of The Dark Knight. But the problem is, DC is trying to copy instead of carving out their own path. They keep forcing their characters to be more Marvel-like.
You said that like it explains why there's a total stranger in my place, sitting in the dark, in my second favorite chair. There's a person who looks exactly like me, but who is definitely not me.
Sand fabric, abrasion resistant, heat resistant.
Yeah, I do competitive ice dancing.
What the?
Okay, we're not ready for racially charged.
But that's not why people enjoy DC. Marvel tends to have a lighter tone, quippier and more comedic, while DC traditionally focuses on more dark, complex situations. That contrast is what makes DC stand out. But instead of that, we're getting Marvel light. These movies want to be the grim, brooding intensity of The Dark Knight, but they also want to have the humor of Marvel so they can get those sweet Twitter memes. Or is it X memes now? I have to suspect that they're afraid to commit to real drama. Maybe they don't want to write emotionally intense scenes that could make the audience uncomfortable. Maybe they're insecure about their own writing and are afraid that it won't be taken seriously. Whatever the case is, it's only serving to make DC look worse and worse. They can't seem to stick with a consistent tone, so every movie tries to do everything at once, and ends up doing nothing instead. Man of Steel was our first taste of an attempt at a DC cinematic universe, but as I just said, they tried to cram too much into one film. We get Superman's origins, his first foray into being Superman, and what's worse, they automatically jump to a global threat with Zod trying to terraform Earth. Man of Steel doesn't really give us any time to grow with the character. Instead, we get snippets of his actions, fragments of his childhood, and constant jumps across the timelines, all meant to give the sense that Superman himself is aimless. But that has the unfortunate side effect of making the movie feel aimless as well. One piece of credit I can give to Man of Steel is it feels mostly consistent in its tone. It doesn't ruin scenes with jokes constantly and lets dramatic moments breathe. But again, due to how scattered this movie feels, the dramatic moments don't hit as hard as they otherwise could have. When Batman vs. Superman came around, instead of focusing on the namesake of the movie, Batman vs. Superman, they ultimately make the ending about Doomsday. Compare this to the fight in Dark Knight Returns. Actually, there really is no comparison. There's build-up, there's character conflict, there's emotional weight to these two old friends being driven to fight each other. That tonal weight is just not present in Batman vs. Superman. Just some contrived, what if Superman is actually a bad guy?
Williams, he has the power to wipe out the entire human race, and if we believe there's even a 1% chance that he is our enemy, we have to take it as an absolute certainty.
Let's talk.
Instead of Batman having a face-to-face with Superman, talking things out, Batman just decides that Superman is evil and tries to kill him. Then, to give them a common enemy, Doomsday is forced into the script, which just paves over any weight the fight between Batman and Supes had. Wonder Woman gets her own dedicated movie, which really does nothing for the rest of the DC movies at this point, other than that it establishes her character does indeed exist. Justice League didn't get any better. A new literal Who villain that is unknown to anyone who doesn't read comics. Steppenwolf is causing generic destruction. And while the film tells us that we need to care about this, Suddenly, the Justice League is formed on the spot, no real introductions. The movie is already asking us to care about the biggest, baddest villain with no setup. But now they want us to feel like the Justice League is an actual team right this second. Justice League turns into wait for Superman to show up and save the day for the most part. If you don't consider the Snyder Cut, which honestly you shouldn't, because the fact that Barry can casually time travel removes any and all danger. The core problem with Man of Steel, Batman vs. Superman, Wonder Woman, and Justice League is that they don't really have a main villain to build up to. See, from the first Avengers movie, Thanos was being hinted at, that he's gonna show up at some point and rock the universe. We all knew something much bigger was coming, and we wanted to see it. In DC, each movie gets its own self-contained villain. Even the ones that do threaten the world and the fabric of the universe, they're introduced in the same movie that they're defeated in. The key to Marvel's success at the time wasn't about the CGI slopfest that it's now turned into. It was this feeling of investment. If you kept watching, you'd get to see the culmination of what everything's been building to. And the key was, each character had their own movies prior to their big on-screen team-up. We got a feel for Iron Man, Thor, Hulk, sorta, and Captain America. So when the Avengers finally hit, it was this huge payoff to see all these characters on screen at once. It felt like we were seeing the payoff to all the time we spent with these characters, learning about them, having reasons to care about their growth, and we got to see them do what superheroes do best, causing massive amounts of property damage. DC didn't have this foundation. Man of Steel was the only solo movie in the entire trilogy. After that, we suddenly got this new version of Batman, the first one since Dark Knight Rises. He had no proper introduction. Then we get a solo Wonder Woman movie 2/3 of the way through the franchise. By the time of Justice League, we're expected to accept the Flash and Aquaman out of nowhere. The problem here is that the movie had to spend time establishing them, rather than letting them have their own dedicated movies prior to Justice League. Now we have to waste time recruiting them, when that time could have been spent building up the stakes and drama. On top of all this, I couldn't care less about Steppenwolf. I literally have no idea who this CGI abomination is, and he only exists for one movie, rather than having nearly a decade of build-up, like Thanos did. Do you know the only thing that really carried over from Man of Steel into Batman vs. Superman? The fact that Superman and Zod nearly flattened Metropolis. Yes, the super entertaining aspect of city planning and taxpayer money. This was pretty much Batman's entire reason for wanting to kill Superman, that he caused a lot of property damage. Forget about the fact that this guy was literally the one person on the entire planet capable of stopping the alien invasion. You know what I would have done instead? Use the Kryptonians as the big bad villains of the main Justice League movie. Man of Steel introduces Superman, giving us plenty of time to see his origins and his build-up to the cape. When he activates the Kryptonian ship, it sends out a homing signal, which gives Zod and his people a beacon to chase, who then broadcast their impending arrival. This creates a dread-inducing countdown on humanity's survival. Batman vs. Superman would have more justification to Batman's paranoia. Superman is a Kryptonian, and now more of his people are on their way to conquer Earth. Batman would question if Superman is a legitimate force for good, or if he was a scout, sent to observe the world. Batman would want to fight Superman to see if he can handle taking on the rest of the Kryptonians. Superman would try to reason with him and convince him that he's loyal to Earth, not these warmongers coming to destroy his home. In the end, Batman would form an uneasy alliance with Supes, but recognize that they're going to need more people to take on the strike force that's approaching. Aquaman, Wonder Woman, The Flash, and Batman would get their own movies prior to Justice League. This way, when all the characters come into the fold, we wouldn't have to spend a single second introducing them as new characters. Justice League would be the big payoff. Zod arrives, and after some attempts by Superman to convince them to coexist with Earth, they refuse and war breaks out. Now, if you did it this way, guess what? You can make your next set of DC movies about the build-up to Steppenwolf. Give Aquaman, Flash, Batman, Wonder Woman, and Superman sequels that help flesh out this new threat. Build them up as this massive problem. The Kryptonians were a global threat, but now Steppenwolf has a gun pointed at the head of the universe. Hell, kill Superman in his second solo movie. Have Doomsday be a planet tester of sorts. A being that Steppenwolf sends to see if a given world is even worthy of his time. Superman dies, but takes Doomsday with him. Then the question is, can the Justice League take on this massive threat without Supes? Do you know why DC didn't take this approach? Because they wanted their Marvel-level success, without actually putting the time and effort into building a universe. This is why they cram movies full of everything they can to try and do all the Avengers at once, which only serves to make the movies feel cramped and directionless. Too much is going on at once, and we as the audience can't get attached to any one thing. And you know the worst thing about this? It's happening again. I watched Superman 2025 in a way that didn't require me to pay, and I'm so thankful I didn't. Superman 2025 is by all means not really a movie. It doesn't do what a movie usually does. It has no setup for anything, no real payoffs, and barely any structure. In fact, I'm almost certain it was half written by AI. AI knows how to make a series of scenes, but its ability to interweave them is lacking. Especially to interweave them in a deep, meaningful way. Superman 2025 starts off 3 minutes after Superman loses a fight. Instead of showing us the fight, to give us that connection to the drama, no, we just skip that, for the sake of Crypto the Superdog being comic relief and tormenting Superman in his injured state. Remember, Superman just lost a fight. When he loses, entire zip codes disappear. But instead of honing in on that, no, an obvious CGI cartoon dog plays with a beaten and bloodied Superman, who is then dragged back to the Fortress of Solitude, where his robots do the James Gunn patented Guardians of the Galaxy humor of, haha, it's funny because they're so self-aware.
No need to thank us, sir, as we will not appreciate it. We have no consciousness whatsoever, merely automatons here to serve.
Then we get a pointless build-up to Superman being recharged by the sun in an unearned dramatic sequence. Heroic music and all, despite the fact that we literally just met this version of Supes. We're suddenly supposed to feel empowered by this scene. The rest of the movie doesn't get any better. Superman 2025 is a stream of consciousness with barely any reason for anything to happen, or for you to care about. The two nations that are at war with each other in some distant place is supposedly so important, yet is practically forgotten about for 90% of the movie. Nor does their conflict threaten anything other than the lives of the people there. There's no greater threat to the rest of the world. These two nations are not nuclear states. Their war will mean nothing to the rest of the world. The only threat that even matters is Lex weaponizing his pocket dimension, letting it split the city in half. Both of these quote-unquote crises are happening at the same time. Will Superman abandon the hopeless people in not Afghanistan and save Metropolis? Or will he let an interdimensional rift in space-time destroy the city and possibly the rest of the world so he can save some irrelevant nation? Let me tell you, I was so conflicted on which crisis Superman should solve first that every time the scenes with Metropolis splitting in half were on screen, I completely forgot that not the Middle East was in danger because there's a rift in our fucking dimension splitting the city in half. Now let me remind you, both of these issues do not become actual problems until the last 15 or 20 minutes of the movie. One of my biggest issues with the film is Superman getting cancelled on Twitter because Lex most likely deepfaked Superman's biological parents, telling him to conquer Earth and breed a new race of Kryptonians. Now, despite the fact that Superman has been doing his save the day stuff for over 3 years, the public suddenly all at once flips on him without much hesitation, and he turns himself in. And Superman seems like he's worried that he'll just start doing what his parents may or may not actually have sent him to Earth to do, as if he has no free will, and will suddenly turn into a Manchurian candidate and begin taking over Earth. And it's still unclear if Lex doctored the footage or not. No, wait. Thankfully, Mr. Terrific, a literal who that's dangerously close to copyright infringement of Mr. Fantastic, is here to tell us that there's no possible way that it could have been faked. Because, I don't know, reasons.
Damage in the trip from Krypton to Earth, so it's gotta be doctored.
No way, Clark. I know this computer forensics guys. They're not gonna say it's legit unless they are sure.
Which is why Soups even turns himself in to begin with. Thanks, Guy. This is how I know that this movie was written by AI. Because it doesn't take into account any of Superman's established character throughout media, and his character within the movie. There's no deliberation, second guessing, or any kind of doubt in the public eye about the validity of the footage. Everyone goes from trusting Superman to suddenly hating him. Now, this might be how people think in real life, in black and white these days, but I don't want my Superman movies to be modeled to real life. I can just imagine some hack Hollywood writer on ChatGPT saying, "What if it turned out the message from Clark's biological parents was actually a message to rule over Earth?" And GPT coldly responds, "Excellent! That would be a great way to subvert expectations and make for a way to have the public turn on Superman." Then, instead of the writers putting more build-up to this idea, more questioning of it, they just instantly utilize it because they think we're all as dumb as they want us to be. Let's touch on the Justice Gang. One, they're barely in the movie for like 10 minutes before Superman turns himself in. Then Lois, in an attempt to track down Superman's whereabouts, garners information from the gang as if they've been friends for weeks, despite no such relationship between Superman and the Justice Gang having been shown or even remotely hinted at.
How do you even know Superman anyway?
I just do.
So you know about the hypno glasses?
Now she does.
Well, I'm not saying who he is, just that he wears hypno glasses. They make his face terrific. How do they work? They make his face look different in your brain when he wears them so that you don't know who he is.
Yes, I know this, first of all. But second of all, you really shouldn't be telling me this in case I don't know who he is.
So you know he's Clark Kent?
Oh my God, why does he trust everyone?
He does it. Just us, because we are also of the cloth.
But in spite of this, yes, the Justice Gang knows all about Superman's real identity, his tricks, his secrets. Again, none of this partnership between these two had been established prior to this. Superman and the Justice Gang only fought like 2 things on screen, and somehow they're very tight-knit. Second, in true Guardians of the Galaxy fashion, when Green Lantern calls them the Justice Gang, Hawkgirl denies that being their name.
Day in the life of the Justice Gang!
Not our name. It's just a working name.
Could very well prove to be permanent, though.
Probably not.
Good chance, though.
He's in your group, right? The, what's it called again?
The Justice Gang.
Nope.
We're not called that.
Yeah, your name is Mr. Terrific. You don't get a vote with a name like that.
I also voted against it.
Yes, and as leader, I get tiebreaker. No.
Guys, get it? It's funny because they're self-aware of how cringy the name is. I get it that you're afraid of your own writing, but just own it. Stop making fun of your own writing in an attempt to beat the audience to the punchline. Justice Gang. Yes, it's cringy, but you know what? Make them take it seriously. Make them make it all a little over the top. You might get made fun of for it, but so what? Suck it up. This movie is trying to be the next attempt at setting up a DC cinematic universe. And like with its predecessors, it doesn't know what it wants to be. It wants to have serious moments of drama and suspense, but just can't help itself to ruin those moments with the Marvel tier millennial, that just happened humor. There's absolutely zero sense of any danger. For example, in the pocket universe that Lex uses to store metahumans, and anyone he personally has a problem with, there's an anti-proton river that will supposedly just annihilate anyone that touches it. But then Superman literally takes a bath in it and comes out clean. Again, no sense of danger. It has no consistency either. The guy who can turn himself into any known material claims that he can't carry his own child while he's activating his powers.
I can't carry him when I change forms.
Yet we literally see him grab Superman during his near bodiless state and try to drag him out of a black hole. Yeah, you totally can't carry your own son, can you? When the city is being torn apart, you don't see anything truly dramatic happening. No one dies on screen. When soldiers of Country A invade Country B, there's no conflict. Nothing. Literally, the only thing that happens is that, for some reason, one of the soldiers aims at a child holding up a Superman flag, fires, and the bullet is stopped by Green Lantern. Are you kidding me? A soldier is trying to shoot a child. Well, this script was written by AI, so there's a shallow, cut and dry, black and white reason why superior military Country A is evil, and this gives the Justice Gang moral authority to kill dozens of men. The movie tries to have some super emotional moments, like when Supes tells Lex all about how human he is, and that's what truly matters, building bridges and not walls.
Piece of shit! Alien! That is where you've always been wrong about me, Lex. I'm as human as anyone. I love, I get scared, I wake up every morning and despite—
Whatever seriousness this contrived emotional moment had is undone by the joke of Krypto nearly killing Lex by dragging him around his control room. Something we wish Superman would have done, by the way. They even try to have some great reveal of Lex's motives, where he fully admits how narcissistic and insecure he is. I guess to drive home the point of how petty he is, or something.
Driven by envy, Luthor. You couldn't be more obvious.
No shit. I'm not dim. I'm aware envy consumes my every waking moment. I know when they mention Galileo or Einstein or one of these other twits in the same breath as me, I feel a tide of vomit burn the back of my throat. But at least Galileo did something. He wasn't some dopey Venusian catapulted onto this planet just to have the world fawn over him because his strength illuminates how weak we all really are. So my envy is a calling. It is the sole hope for humanity because it is what has driven me to annihilating you.
Whatever DC is trying to build with Superman 2025, it's not gonna work. Because Superman literally accomplished nothing. It set nothing up, and once again, they just shoved everything they could into one movie. The shotgun approach to world building. Throw everything at the wall and pray that something sticks. Until DC gets its act together, hires a competent director and writers, and actually gives these movies time to build a world and raise the stakes, DC live action will be playing catch up with Marvel forever. Honestly, DC should just stick to animated. It's superior in every single way. What do you think? Is DC doomed to never get their time in the Marvel spotlight? Or do you think Superman 2025 is their ticket? Let us know in the comments, and consider subscribing to this channel and liking this video if you want to see more like it. Thanks for watching, and take it easy.